Now, change in transaction banking was already accelerating before the COVID-19 pandemic, driven by increased competition, digitalization of core services, ever more sophisticated financial crime, and, of course, emerging technology.
The primary tasks of financial institutions include protecting customers and shareholders, financing economic development, and deploying strategies to ensure stability and thus the trust of clients.
Well, earlier I spoke to George Doolittle, an Executive Vice President and Head of Global Payments at Wells Fargo. And I began by asking him what role Wells Fargo's primary operating subsidiary, Wells Fargo NA, plays in global transaction banking today.
Well, Wells Fargo Bank NA has actually been in international and global transaction banking for quite a long time. First as Wells Fargo NA on the West Coast, which was largely following consumers across the world. And on the East Coast, we were financing trade and other activities through the ports on the East Coast. Today, our transaction banking obviously has moved on dramatically, the addition of technology and everything else. But the group is particularly focused on providing trade finance activities, foreign exchange activities, and obviously payment activities to our large corporate institutional customers, as well to very important financial institutions relationships that have been developed over the last 100 years.
Okay, so it's fair to say that you guys are very busy. But look, given what is happening with the rapid evolution of transaction banking platforms and technology pre-COVID-19, what do you see as the changes in payment solutions that are specific to the pandemic? Because so much has happened, is happening.
It is obviously causing many of the physical transactions in financial institutions to disappear because people can't go to branches and they really are reluctant to use paper. So what we're seeing is this rapid digitalization happening across the financial space where banks are running to catch up with the needs of their customers. We also are struggling with a greater challenge of cybersecurity across the globe as a result of the pandemic. That's requiring all the financial institutions to pull together with their regulators and their agencies, military agencies and others to provide support and protection for customers. Before, the customer used to come into our branch and walk right in and hand us something, but now that customer can't do that and wants to see those things they did physically happening as quickly and as comprehensively as in the past. And lastly, I think the other thing that is really important to many of the viewers here is clearly the work from home environment. Work from home environment means that banks who have often hundreds and thousands of employees and team members are having to figure out new ways to communicate, new ways to collaborate, and also ensure that we're looking after our employees' welfare. The pandemic is pushing us to find new ways of engagement over digital channels.
Are you worried about the rise of the fintechs and, of course, the new national platforms and the impact they're likely to have to your cross-border transaction banking business?
Clearly, the capabilities of the fintechs are accelerating dramatically. Upstream businesses are beginning to also adopt new technology, which means that your local shopping store, other places around us are leveraging that technology, and the fintech also often has the response to that. In addition, I think we have to think about they have a breadth of activities that often fall outside of the scope of the traditional role of regulators globally. So while a lot of the things that happen in banks have been long understood by the regulators and others, fintechs are new, and so there may be a little bit of things they can do that we can't do. But ultimately, I think that they're a godsend. We absolutely needed to stir up things in the banking segment. We absolutely needed to look at new ways of doing things. And I think that whether we partner with them, build with them, buy them, they buy us, whatever that's going to resolve in, what we're going to get is better client experience. However, I think the financial institutions, because of their clear proximity to so many customers globally, are going to have quite an advantage in arranging how the handshake happens between the fintech and the consumer. We try to run the business under what I call an end-to-end moniker, which means that let's not just focus on everything on the cool apps, and let's not focus on what, as we heard some fintech had. Let's focus on who is our customer, what time zone are they in, what is their culture, What are their expectations in light of that culture? We're helping financial institutions in over 200 jurisdictions around the world, and obviously things are very, very different from one part of the world to the other. So we're spending a lot of time trying to understand how we can better identify what a customer wants from the moment they initiate a transaction to what they want by the time that transaction finishes, whether it's at a corporate or at a consumer, or a family member or whatever that might be. And that might include things like, well, I don't mind if it's too fast or too slow. The speed isn't really what I'm worried about. What I'm worried about is the security. What I'm worried about is that my family member has the reference information to get that transaction immediately reconciled. So I think it's those kind of things, is identifying the priorities of our customers and building to those priorities.
And do you believe that there is a useful strategy in cross-border transaction banking to address design, developing and building, given the huge effort required to digitize services and also keep that line with the customer, that it isn't lost in the process of this movement, this technology-driven move?
I like to say I'm not a communist, I'm a communitarian. I have worked for many, many years, I have several decades now with organizations like SWIFT, and I've become convinced over the years that really doing something, anything in a mutualized fashion with many is way better than trying to do anything yourself. And I think that when we look at our design, technology, delivery to our customers, let's leverage everybody's talent and skill set to deliver the ultimate product.
There's much talk about the new normal and what it's likely to be. Are you optimistic going forward into that uncertainty?
I think there's a lot of work ahead. I'm optimistic. I always have believed that humankind finds its way forward. I think, though, the devil is in the detail, and more challenging is going to be how we align and strategize both the financial needs and requirements of the global population with their other requirements, and ensure that governments and banks work together. And one of the biggest challenges we have at the moment is figuring out how we get the geopolitics, the community, and the financial system and others to work effectively together to enhance the overall benefit to everyone, including countries, underdeveloped countries, countries that today might not have what they need in terms of basic welfare for their people. So I think that I'm excited about that, and I actually believe that financial institutions, because of their community approach, are very, very much going to be a part of that build out in the future.
Okay, so some sound thoughts on which to end. But George Doolittle, Executive Vice President and Head of Global Payments at Wells Fargo, thank you so much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it very much.